And if things are working properly this morning, it is time for the Berkshire Edge on air. Of course, you can find the Berkshire Edge at theberkshireedge.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, theberkshireedge.com. Let's see if Marcy and David are there. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can hardly hear you, though.
You can hardly hear me? How about
Yeah.
now? How about now?
No.
Wow. Everybody else, there's no problem with everybody else.
David, can you hear them?
I know. I see what you mean. They're a little.
It's very faint.
It's very faint. Wow. I'm not a faint person. I can't.
No.
That's right. Well, I've got everything potted up to 100%, so we'll go on and see what happens here. All right.
Well, that's getting a little better.
All right. So now, what's started off with the pandemic and the South County schools now getting creative on how to honor and celebrate the graduating class.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're given the pandemic, the schools are trying to figure out and have to reconfigure how they do their graduations. And this is not unusual, of course. But I mean, every school across the country is probably doing the same thing. But some of them are going to go online and have kind of virtual celebrations. For example, Monument Mountain Regional High School here at Great Barrington is going to have a kind of drive-through style where students receive that's how students receive their diplomas. And then they're going to have a parade of the cars with the kids in it, just for the graduates. So this is a kind of.
We're being creative.
We're trying to be creative,
and we have this. David has a son who's graduating from the 8th grade at the Montessori school, and they have done something very imaginative. They're first of all, they've done it. Every student has been videotaped, dressed up and making a graduation speech, and they're going to put them all together. And on June 10th, there's going to be a virtual graduation, and they've sent out emails to, David has provided a list of names and emails, and everyone is invited to make a video of congratulations for the graduating student. And those will be all put together, too, so that he will have at least some sort of celebration of himself and a memento of a graduation ceremony.
Yeah, what they're doing at the I got to fix this. Okay, there we go. What they're doing at the Weewituck Central School District is they videotaped everything that the administrators and stuff would do, and they videotaped the handing out of the diplomas, one at a time, and then that's going to be shown at the drive-in, at the Amenia Drive-In, so everybody can be in cars.
Oh, really? At the drive-in?
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then after this is all over, then they're going to show a movie.
A movie of what? Just a movie.
I don't know.
Drive-in.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be School's Out. I have no idea, but it's a good idea what they're doing. I think it's a great idea what they're doing.
Well, they had to be very creative with and trying to figure out how to do these ceremonies that are socially and medically appropriate
safe
for this situation.
If this were back in 1971, our class would vote to have a big party with a couple of kegs of beers, and we would spread everybody out over like 15, 20 acres and have some fun that way. But that wouldn't work nowadays.
No.
Well, anyways.
It's terrible because, it's a memory. I mean, look, these kids are young, especially David's son, who's graduating from the 8th grade. So it's not like, this is the culmination of his school career. But still, it's a memory that they won't have.
I've always thought, and this is just me, and I know I'm going to sound like a grump, but even back when I graduated from 8th grade, and we used to have to wear ties and jackets, and if kids couldn't afford to do that at Sharon Center School, they would buy the suit for them. So everybody graduated like that, and I just always thought that when you save the graduation a biggie for high school, have parties and stuff like that, because the high school graduation going to college is really a significant achievement for a student who's gone through from grammar school, preschool, grammar school, right on up through. That it really is a significant moment when it's the first time where the ties are kind of broken with home, and it's a real important event. It really is.
Well, for us though, you see, I have young kids. I have one, who's in 9th grade and one who's in 8th grade. So, graduating from 8th grade is going to next year. Both of those kids are going to be away at schools. One is going to be in Putney, and the other is going to be in Middlesex, near Boston. So this is they are going away.
Yeah, that's good. They are.
Yeah.
Well. Congratulations! You have some peace and quiet.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun to see, even though it was a ceremony where each individual kid got up and made a little speech, and that was videoed, and it'll be all put together for the virtual graduation. So, right. But that's the way it has to be done. This time around.
It's just the way it is, and people are adapting and have to adapt to it, and they're coming up with creative ways to do this. I want to move on to your next story because it's something that we find in every community. There was one in Lakeville yesterday, one in Poughkeepsie, coming up in Cornwall this weekend. Kent is having one, and these are gatherings and protests of people over the murder of the black man in Minneapolis, and Black Lives Matter. These events now are taking place in so many different communities, and you're talking about one in Pittsfield.
Yep, there's one. There's one that was held in Pittsfield, and it's been a difficult and heart-rending situation. And what's interesting to me is how people have felt so moved by across the country by this event, and it's almost as if it were it's almost as if it tapped into something that was, I think, everyone maybe was surprised at. I certainly was at how it just it's enraged so many people across the country, that murder of that George Floyd by those Minneapolis cops. So that was and everywhere there's some feeling of real outrage and that has struck a deep chord in people.
See, I don't know. I'm 67. Okay, I had the luck or unluck of being fully aware of the riots that took place in Hartford, Los Angeles, New York, the burning many years ago.
In the late 60s.
Yeah, right. And the minute I saw this picture of just a still picture, I said to myself, "This is going to be the thing that blows up the powder keg once again." And we are going to head into a very, very long summer that not only do we do with the pandemic, we're also going to deal with these riots that happened late at night and the peaceful protests that happened before those. It's just we're heading into a summer that is almost identical to what happened years ago, and that's the sad thing, that as far as we think we have come in this country dealing with racism, this just reopens the wound, and the fact that No, we haven't come far enough.
No, and that was what 1967 or
Yeah, we just have not come far enough as a country. It's
Right.
It's unbelievable.
But I think it's worse this time. I mean, not that. I mean, first of all, it's worse because it's 60 years or whatever it is since, and we haven't moved at all. No. But the other thing is that we're right now. I mean, and I think this is largely due to social media, but we're in a situation where there are so many crazies. We haven't experienced it yet in the Berkshires, but there are so many conspiracy theories, and there are so many small groups of radicals and extremists. I mean, now, what we didn't have in the late 60s was the far, far left Antifa movement. We didn't have the far, far right white supremacist, and we didn't have social media, which is putting out an extraordinary amount of conspiracy information. That this is George Soros who's causing all of this, or Bill Gates is trying to poison everybody with a vaccine that's going to subjugate the world to his power. These are things that are being put forth in social media, and are being read by millions and millions and millions of people and believed. So, in the 1960s, it was the black communities that erupted, and you either were sympathetic to them or not. But now we've got so many groups of people with different perspectives, and who are not going to whose issue is not the central issue of racism.
It's
and we also have now a political structure which is not helpful.
It's a harrowing time, and it's a
harrowing time, and plus we have the pandemic. So I have no idea where this is going. It is going to be a long and very unpleasant summer, and it's going to be a long and very unpleasant race for the presidency. It's very disheartening, because the America and the United States that we all knew, and that even gave us some hope that there would be some solution to racism, that America is no longer here, and the path to the solution is very unclear.
What I don't understand, and I try to think in simple terms. I did this in high school. I did this in grammar school when I was doing work. And reading into different problems, is what I don't understand is right after this happened, and the first person was charged. The other three should be charged. Why our Capitol, the president, and I'll say the leadership of the House and Senate didn't get together and say we're going to set up a commission that includes retired police officers, retired black and minority Americans that have been abused by police violence, and we're going to set up a commission that is going to investigate rogue police officers throughout this country. It might take 2, 3, 4 years, but you look at rogue police officers. There might be 5 to 10% of the police officers that are rogue. That sounds small, but it's not rogue when you take it's not small when you take the whole country. I think if a commission like that was set up that started to work, it would kind of ease, not totally, but it would set the country on a right path at least. But I'm just surprised that nobody has come up with something like that.
Well, that's because the president on down is taking advantage of this. He doesn't want it dispelled. This kind of embedded racist attitude. He wants to use it.
Yeah, it's just
it's
surprising.
To his advantage.
Yeah. The only way that this is going to really, really calm down is some serious talks get underway from some serious people, and you start investigating the problem of the minority of rogue cops, which are putting, by the way, all the other police departments and police people that do their job correctly in harm's way,
Yes.
because they'll be viewed as rogue cops as well, and quite potentially attacked. That's what I don't understand, why people can't together. It's a serious problem, and boy, if it's not dealt with sooner or later, this is going to be a real long summer. But anyway,
It's going to be long.
But according to the New York Times, white supremacist groups are infiltrating the police departments all over the country. So who knows what communication is going on between the white supremacist groups and the White House or even the Congress? What kinds of threats if investigations begin?
Well,
and that's why what I think is different from what it was a simpler time in the 1960s. You were against racism or against the war, but you weren't, I don't remember the conspiracy theories, the white supremacists, none of that was, none of that was evident.
Well, it wasn't able to be spread. So
yes,
quickly.
It wasn't able to be spread.
It is just like I say.
Social media is really.
It's an amazing time we're living through, and social media really doesn't help. Okay.
No, it doesn't.
All right.
Even though it helps people, it brings people to the Berkshire Edge, and for that we're pleased. But and we try to spread our news on social media, but. Anyway, let's go on to another story.
That's right. Let's move on to the reopening of Massachusetts with Governor Baker issuing new guidelines.
He did, and because as you know, we're coming up to the summer, and there's various summer children child care programs and recreational camps and so on for the summer. And the question is, how safely can these be engaged by kids and parents? And so Governor Baker has now issued some fairly explicit and detailed guidelines for these thousands of child care providers across the state who are wondering, oh no, what are we going to do?
Yeah, and parents.
Parents. But this article details exactly what he's suggesting.
And unfortunately, sleepover camps have not yet been are not yet going to open. I mean, that I think they haven't figured out what to do with sleepover camps.
But for example, children over 2, should they be encouraged? They're being encouraged to wear a face covering.
Good luck.
Yeah,
they'll end up eating it like a dog. I'm sorry, I'm not comparing children, folks, but it's just true. They can't comprehend the idea of it. They just can't. And I just, first of all, if that happens, I would want to be a photographer there to take the first pictures. That's all I can say.
Well, it's going to be and what I'm concerned about is that these are preparations that are almost practice for what is going to be, if there's a second wave of this virus in the fall. This is almost like these are the routines that are going to become
normal, everyday practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, all I can say, when I was in grammar school as a young kid, we didn't have to worry about this.
Were you young when you went to grammar school?
For many years, and what we did
you were advanced.
We practiced.
Go to school while young, right?
What we had to practice as young kids was getting under the desk and saving ourselves in case there was a nuclear attack.
Cover, right.
That's right. I remember those.
Not to realize that we still would have been burnt to a crisp, but we just would have been under a desk.
You would have been under the desk.
You'd be hovering under your school desk,
That's right.
looking at. Peeking out at the window,
but that was a real fear.
Expecting to see a gigantic flash.
That was that was a real fear. That was a real fear back then, and so our generation survived that. So I think this generation will survive. Will survive this, and and we'll learn from it. I want to go on to the next story, though, and that is, I think, a terrific program that Berkshire 5 seniors have been awarded full scholarships to colleges.
Right. Yes. Go ahead, David.
No, you go ahead.
No, there's this very interesting program called the Chang Chavkin program, which is giving full scholarships to college. And one of the qualifications is that the applicant has to be the first in their family to go to college. So
the two New Marlboro residents, Laura
right.
Chang and Arnie Chavkin, and they're helping first-generation college students. It's really terrific. In fact, so there are 5 students from various high schools throughout Berkshire County who are going to be, the students are going to Cornell, Northwestern, Harvard, Mount Holyoke, which is where my sister went, and RPI. And so this is really
it's wonderful.
This is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a little bit good news with all the pandemic and stuff. Put in there.
But I'd like to go on to the next story because that's very much closer to your home.
Yeah, but it affects, the interesting thing about Lime Rock Park is it might be based in Lime Rock, which is in Salisbury, but it's much bigger than that because the economy that Lime Rock is like Tanglewood of the racing world around here.
Yeah.
It brings in millions of dollars of revenue. So even though it's in Salisbury, it does affect people in South County as well.
Oh, it does. It does. But it also affects you. We've been watching this story. I mean, we've had articles about it as it's gone along. And I was really quite surprised that the ruling went against Lime Rock because, I assumed that because it brings so much money into the area that they would have gotten the benefit of any doubt. So we were very surprised when this ruling came down. And I know that, we have been in touch with people at Music Mountain, and although they're closed for this year, they were very worried. Because they have their concerts on Sunday, and I had also heard, that in the town of Salisbury, that when Lime Rock is operating, it would be impossible on Sunday for church services to go on as usual. So, it's interesting to me to see. I mean, we had an email from a letter to the editor from a second homeowner who said that he loves car racing, and he actually bought a house right next to Lime Rock to be close to Lime Rock. And
and
he was very unhappy about this decision.
Yeah, but he was feeling that they were blaming second homeowners for the complaints against Lime Rock. But he said, "Wait a minute, I got a second home up here in order to be near Lime Rock."
Right.
So, which I thought was an interesting remark. I know about. I have some friends who live near Lebanon Valley Speedway over in New Lebanon, New York, and it's true that those racetracks can be quite loud, even though they live like more than a mile up. Over a hill from that, it is pretty loud. You can the racing can be quite the cars can be quite thunderous on a Saturday night.
All right. Well, guess what, folks? We're out of time already. We're flat out of time. There's only like 20 seconds left.
Well, let's just say our last story is about gardening, and that there has been an explosion of interest in gardening, and all of the garden centers are doing extremely well. And we now, we've added to our list. We have every other week we have a wonderful writer named Lee Butala who writes an article called The Self-Taught Gardener, and now we have added a new writer, Ron, how do I can never
Kowalski.
Ron Kowalski. I always have problems with his name. Ron Kowalski, who is doing his famous gardener's checklist, which has appeared in
Every week.
other publications, and he's now come to us. It's every week what a gardener should be doing, and both of those come out on late Wednesday night, early Thursday, in our morning email on Thursday mornings.
All right. Well,
So for gardeners, and we also have wonderful Judy Issakoff every other week on Monday writes us a gardening article. So we are now, the Berkshire Edge is Garden Central.
all right. The BerkshireEdge.com is the location. David and Marcy will speak to you next week.
Okay. Be safe.
Take care.
Bye.
Be safe to you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
That is the Berkshire Edge on air on Robin Hood Radio. You can find them again at the BerkshireEdge.com.